Disclaimer. This story is based on true events shared for emotional insight and awareness. Some names and details have been changed to respect privacy. Viewer discretion is advised. I wasn't expecting anyone that day. It was one of those quiet afternoons when everything just feels ordinary. I had just made myself a cup of tea, slipped into my comfortable clothes, and was ready to catch up on a show while folding laundry. My husband, Ryan, had left for work early, and like most days, I assumed the rest of the day would pass uneventfully. But I was wrong. Very wrong. The doorbell rang, sudden and sharp, breaking the silence of the house. I remember freezing for a second. We weren't expecting any guests. No packages were due either. I thought maybe it was a neighbor or someone from the building. I peeked through the peephole, and to my surprise, I saw a man standing there well-dressed, mid-30s, holding a file in one hand and a polite but unreadable expression on his face. He looked vaguely familiar. I opened the door slightly unsure and said, "Can I help you?" He smiled, a little too calmly. "Hi, I'm Nate. I work with your husband at the firm." At first, I relaxed a bit. Okay, that made sense. But then my mind raced with questions. Why was he here? Ryan never mentioned anyone coming over, and Nate didn't seem like he was just dropping something off. He had a certain tension in his voice, like he had practiced what to say before arriving. Still trying to stay polite, I invited him in. He declined and said it wouldn't take long. That's when I started getting nervous. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "I didn't know who else to tell, but you deserve to know what's going on." I felt my stomach drop. What did he mean? My hands gripped the edge of the door. I couldn't tell if I was more scared or confused. Nate hesitated, as if battling with his own thoughts. Then he finally said, "I've worked with Ryan for 2 years. I never wanted to get involved in anyone's personal life, but after what I saw last week, I couldn't just stay quiet." My heart began to pound in my ears. I stepped out a little, closing the door behind me so the neighbors wouldn't hear. "What exactly did you see?" I asked. He looked down, avoiding eye contact. "It's complicated. And I'm not trying to start trouble. But I know if I were in your place, I'd want someone to be honest with me." Now my mind was spinning. Thoughts ran wild. Had Ryan done something at work? Was this about a project? Or was it something else? I wanted to stop the conversation, but at the same time, I couldn't. Nate reached into his folder and handed me a piece of paper. "This is a schedule from last Friday. Ryan told you he was working late, right?" I nodded slowly. He continued, "But there was no late shift. We were all off by 6. Ryan signed out before that. I only found this because I was working on the reports over the weekend." I didn't know what to say. A million emotions surged at once: doubt, panic, anger, and a strange sense of denial. Ryan and I had been married for 8 years. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but he'd never given me a reason to suspect anything, until now. Nate watched my face carefully, probably seeing the shock setting in. "I'm not saying anything happened. I'm just saying something's not adding up." I took the paper from his hand, not even looking at it yet. My hands were shaking too much. I finally asked, "Why are you doing this? Why come to me?" He looked almost guilty. "Because I thought you should know before it gets worse. And because I overheard something yesterday that changed everything." That's when his phone buzzed. He looked at it, frowned, and said, "I have to go. But please think about what I said. And be careful." Before I could ask another word, he turned and walked away. I stood there frozen, the paper still in my hand, trying to breathe through the weight of what had just happened. I slowly walked back inside, locked the door, and sat down at the kitchen table. My tea had gone cold. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too heavy. I opened the folded paper and stared at it, though the words didn't register. And just as I tried to make sense of it all, my phone lit up. It was Ryan, calling me. My heart skipped. I hesitated to answer, because now every word, every smile, and every late night he'd told me about came rushing back, but in a new light. And I couldn't help but wonder, was everything about to fall apart? Or was there still a chance I didn't know the whole truth? But something in Nate's voice, something in his eyes, told me this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was only the beginning. I stared at my phone, still ringing in my hand, as if the sound itself was mocking me. It was Ryan, the man I had shared my life with for 8 years. I didn't answer right away. My mind was still clouded by what Nate had said, and even more so by the way he had said it. Calm, serious, with a strange urgency that I couldn't ignore. I finally hit decline. I needed time to think, to breathe, to piece together everything without the pressure of pretending everything was normal. A few minutes later, Ryan texted, "Hey, just checking in. Everything okay?" I didn't reply. I needed to go back, mentally, to the beginning. Not of the day, but of the last few weeks. Had there been signs? Changes in Ryan's behavior? I started to remember the late nights, the sudden work trips that didn't match his usual schedule, and how he'd started keeping his phone closer, even during dinner. At the time, I didn't question it. Life gets busy. People get tired. But now, every little detail seemed to carry new meaning. 2 weeks ago, he had come home unusually quiet. I asked if everything was okay at work. He said he was just tired. The next day, he left early and didn't text much throughout the day, which wasn't like him. When I asked about it later, he brushed it off, saying the office was just chaotic. I believed him. Because when you love someone, doubt doesn't usually walk in easily, it sneaks in slowly. I got up and went to the living room, that folded paper still in my hand. I finally looked at it properly. It was a printout of the firm's sign-in records. Friday, 4:47 p.m., Ryan had signed out. No extended shift. No late client meeting. Nothing to match the story he had told me when he came home that night at almost 10 p.m., smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize and claiming he had to work on a surprise project with a colleague. Back then, I laughed it off. Now, I wasn't laughing. I kept thinking about Nate. He didn't seem like someone who was trying to stir drama. His voice was steady, his eyes sincere, and there was no hesitation when he told me, "You deserve to know." But still, why now? Why him? Why was a coworker the one warning me instead of confronting Ryan directly? What did he overhear? That part he never explained. It was like he intentionally left it out. I thought of texting him back, but I didn't have his number. He hadn't left a card, nothing. Just walked away like he had delivered a message too heavy for himself to carry any longer. My instincts were at war. Part of me wanted to defend Ryan, to believe it was a mistake, a mix-up. But a louder voice inside told me something was off. Very off. Later that evening, I tried acting normal. Ryan came home around 6:30. He greeted me with a smile and a kiss on the forehead, as usual. "Smells like tea in here," he said casually, taking off his shoes. "Good day." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Quiet one." He walked into the kitchen and started rummaging for a snack like nothing had changed. And maybe for him, nothing had. But for me, everything felt different. I couldn't stop watching his face, every movement, every word. He was chatting about something his boss said in a meeting, and all I could think was, is this how people talk when they're hiding something? He didn't bring up Nate. Not once. And that made it worse. If someone from your office visited your wife at home out of nowhere, wouldn't you ask about it? Wouldn't you at least mention it? But he didn't. That night, while he showered, I picked up his phone. I felt horrible, but I had to look. For the first time in 8 years, I crossed that line. But there was nothing unusual in his messages or call logs. No suspicious names. No long message threads. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was almost too clean. Too perfect. It made me wonder, had he already deleted something? The next morning, I sat in the kitchen with the paper Nate gave me and stared at it again. Then I Googled the firm's main number and called, pretending to be someone looking to verify hours for an appointment. The receptionist told me that Fridays were usually short, most employees left by 5. Just like Nate said. Now the timeline made even less sense. Where was Ryan between 5 and 10 p.m. that Friday? I didn't ask him. Not yet. I was still gathering pieces of a puzzle I didn't fully understand. But then something happened that pushed everything deeper into mystery. Around noon, I got a message on Facebook from an account I didn't recognize. No profile photo. Just a single line. Nate didn't tell you everything. And that's when I knew this was way bigger than I thought. I stared at the message on my phone, my heart thudding like it was trying to warn me of something. Nate didn't tell you everything. Just those 6 words, but they hit harder than anything Nate himself had said. I clicked on the sender's profile. It was nearly blank. No posts, no mutual friends, no identifying information. It felt like a ghost had reached out from the shadows of Ryan's life, holding a truth I wasn't meant to find. I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed to be smart, not emotional. For the next few hours, I couldn't focus on anything else. I found myself thinking about every strange moment over the last few months. Ryan's sudden interest in fitness, his new clothes, the late-night showers, and the odd little lies that didn't seem important at the time. I'd told myself he was just going through a phase, maybe trying to feel better about himself. But now it felt like something much deeper. Something hidden. Later that afternoon, while Ryan was still at work, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called our mutual friend, Lila. She'd known both of us since before we got married. I didn't give her the full story. I just asked casually, "Hey, have you ever met anyone from Ryan's office? Like a guy named Nate?" There was a pause. Then she said, "Nate. Yes, actually. I saw him once at the holiday party last year. Tall, quiet, serious kind of guy, right?" I confirmed. "Yeah, that's him." She hesitated, then said something that made my pulse race. "Wait, wasn't he the one who had that weird fallout with Ryan a few months ago?" I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean?" "I don't know all the details, but Ryan mentioned it to Mark once. Said Nate was acting out at work, getting involved where he shouldn't. He said he didn't trust him. I think he even requested not to be on the same team with him anymore." I thanked her and hung up, my mind spinning. That changed everything. If Nate and Ryan had issues at work, then why did Nate come to me? Was it about protecting me or getting back at Ryan? The line between truth and manipulation was suddenly blurry. It was possible Nate was telling the truth. But it was also possible he had a personal grudge. Maybe he wanted to sabotage Ryan's life, our life. Maybe this had nothing to do with infidelity and everything to do with power. But then, there was that message. Nate didn't tell you everything. Someone else knew something. Someone who didn't want to be seen. That night, I acted normal again. Smiling through dinner, asking about his day, watching him move through the house like nothing was wrong. He laughed at a joke he read online and looked completely relaxed. Either he was innocent, or he was an expert at hiding things. Then something strange happened. While he was in the shower, a notification lit up on his phone. It was from an app one didn't recognize, an encrypted messaging one. The name was a random string of numbers. No contact name. Just, "Missed call from 9842. I stared at it, heart pounding. The screen dimmed before I could read more. I didn't unlock it. I couldn't. But I knew this wasn't normal. I spent the rest of the night wide awake, lying next to him in silence, wondering if I really knew the man I had built a life with. There were too many questions now. Who was 9842? Why did Nate risk so much to talk to me? What didn't he say? And why did it feel like someone else was watching all of this from the outside? The next morning, I finally replied to the anonymous Facebook message. I wrote, "What didn't he tell me?" No response. Not right away. I waited. Hours passed. Then, just when I was about to give up, another message appeared. "Meet me tomorrow. I'll show you. Don't tell Ryan." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about late nights or deleted messages anymore. Something was seriously wrong, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what I might find next. The next 24 hours felt like walking through a fog. Everything around me looked the same. The walls, the routine, Ryan's voice, but nothing felt normal anymore. I barely slept that night. My mind kept circling the same questions over and over. Who sent the message? What was Nate hiding? And why did they both seem convinced that I was the one who needed to know something? The next morning, I woke up early, pretending to still be asleep as Ryan got ready for work. He kissed my forehead, just like always, and whispered, "I'll see you tonight." But this time, the words felt hollow. As soon as I heard the front door close, I got up, heart already racing. I opened my phone and read the message again. "Meet me tomorrow. I'll show you. Don't tell Ryan." The sender had finally given me a time and place. 3:30 p.m., outside a small cafe across town. It wasn't a familiar spot, which made me nervous. But I knew I had to go. I needed answers, real ones. No more guessing. No more watching the man I love wondering if he's living a double life. The day dragged on, each hour heavier than the last. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting, watching. Around noon, I almost backed out. What if this was a trap? What if I was walking into something bigger than I could handle? But then I remembered the way Ryan looked at me lately, distant, distracted, and the way his phone lit up with that unknown number. By the time I reached the cafe, I was shaking. I stood on the corner, scanning faces. People came and went, none of them familiar. Then I saw a woman. She had dark sunglasses on, her hair tied up, standing just far enough away to look like she wasn't waiting for anyone. But she was waiting for me. She walked over slowly and said my name quietly, like she was testing to see if I'd react. "You don't know me," she said. "But I know what your husband's been doing, and I know Nate wasn't honest with you." I blinked, completely thrown off. "Who are you?" She hesitated, then said, "Let's walk." "I can't talk here." I followed her, heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear my own footsteps. She turned to me once we were out of sight from the street and whispered, "There's something going on at the office. And Ryan, he's in deeper than you think." And that's when she handed me something that would change everything. It was a small black USB drive. I looked at it in her hand, not fully understanding. "What's on it?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The woman didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the alley like she expected someone to be watching. "It's all there," she said quietly. "Emails, transfers, internal documents. Your husband isn't just hiding something personal. He's involved in something bigger, something illegal." "And Nate?" He tried to expose it. "That's why Ryan turned on him." My knees felt weak. "Wait, what kind of illegal?" She leaned in closer, her voice now sharp and fast. "There's a side business, money being moved through the firm's accounts. It's not just Ryan, but he's knee-deep in it. Nate found out and was gathering proof. That's why he came to you. But what he didn't tell you is that Ryan knows someone's onto him." I took the USB drive, my hands trembling. Everything in me wanted to scream that this couldn't be true. Ryan was a lot of things distant lately, secretive, but criminal? No. I couldn't believe it. And yet here I was, standing in the back of a cafe with a stranger handing me digital evidence and claiming my husband was in some kind of corporate crime. The woman stepped back. "I shouldn't be talking to you. I could get fired or worse. But you needed to know. And you need to decide what you're going to do." Before I could say another word, she was gone, disappearing into the street like she'd never been there. I stood there alone, gripping the USB. I thought I was uncovering an affair. But now I might be holding the proof of something much darker. And if Ryan even suspected I had this, I didn't know what he might do next. That night, I waited until Ryan fell asleep. His breathing was steady, his arm draped over me like everything was normal. I slowly slid out of bed, heart pounding, and went straight to my laptop. I plugged in the USB and opened the files. What I found confirmed everything the woman had said: emails between Ryan and unknown contacts, spreadsheets of transfers masked as consulting payments, and audio clips Nate must have secretly recorded in the office. I felt sick. My hands trembled as I copied everything to a secure folder and emailed it to myself. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. Go to the police? A lawyer? But then I noticed something buried deep in the folders. A video file. I clicked it open, expecting another meeting recording. But instead, I saw Ryan sitting in our own living room, talking to someone off-screen. His voice was cold. If she ever finds out, we move fast. Nate's already a problem. She can't become one too. I stopped breathing. It wasn't just lies or illegal deals. He was planning for what would happen if I ever got too close. The man I loved, who smiled at me every morning, had a plan in place in case I became a threat. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. Ryan stood in the doorway, watching me. "You found it," he said softly. I froze, unsure whether to run or scream. But then, his expression shifted. Not anger, something else. Calm. He reached into his pocket slowly and said, "There's something else you didn't find yet." And in that moment, I realized the USB wasn't the only secret he had kept from me. My pulse raced as Ryan stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. He pulled something from his pocket, but it wasn't a weapon. It was a small key. He held it out and said quietly, "There's a safety deposit box. If anything ever happened to me, I was going to leave everything there for you." The truth. For a moment, I was speechless. All the fear, all the tension, came crashing down into one sharp realization. He had been hiding more than just his actions. He had been preparing for consequences. I took the key, my fingers brushing his, unsure whether to feel betrayed or strangely relieved. Over the next few days, everything changed. With the files from the USB and what I later found in the deposit box, bank statements, names, dates, it became clear that Ryan had been pulled into something far beyond his control. At first, he had helped cover things up to protect his position, but as the web grew darker, he didn't know how to escape it. Nate had tried to do the right thing. And that mysterious woman? She was part of the firm's internal investigation, someone who had seen too much and couldn't stay quiet anymore. In the end, Ryan came clean. He turned himself in with legal help. Our marriage didn't survive, but the truth did. I learned how far silence can go in hiding a storm and how important it is to listen to your instincts. Because sometimes, the biggest betrayal isn't just a lie, it's what someone's willing to do to keep it hidden.